Drink with James, episode 28. We have Laurel Pantin, like the shampoo, editorial director at Coveteur, formerly known as the Coveteur. They've dropped the which I think every business at some point you get successful enough where you just start losing parts of your name.
Yeah.
So we're super excited to have you.
Thanks.
Laurel has a kind of interesting story that I will let you tell, maybe.
Sure. Okay, so I went to NYU for college. I grew up in Texas and I went to boarding school in Massachusetts, and at that point I was like, there's no way I'm going back to Texas. It's New York or nothing. So I came to New York. I went to the Gallatin School, which just like kind of lets you design your own major, because I had no idea what I was going to do. And I had always wanted to work in fashion, like kind of in the back of my mind, like fashion or interiors or some kind of like editorial world. But I was just like too shy and too intimidated to ask for it. Mm-hmm. So when I lost my job at Domino, I went to HR and I said, I want to work at Vogue or Teen Vogue and I want to write. And if not that, then I have this other plan. And it's sort of like a last ditch effort. And it happened then that Eva Chen's assistant had recently gone to another magazine, so she needed an assistant. Mm-hmm. And they paired me up with her in like a temporary role, and it just ended up working out really well. And it was like the best thing that could have ever happened. Eva, you really can't ask for a better first boss.
You worked with Eva, who's amazing.
Yeah.
How much has, I mean, obviously social was such a part of her career.
Mm-hmm.
And she's so like just there, you know, and like and available to her followers. And yeah, she's like does an amazing job of like having this really cool life, but documenting in a really like authentic and real and relatable way. How much has social played a part in your career?
I think it has, to the extent that it's a representation of the things that I can do that can't really be conveyed in words. I think also like the experience I had over last year traveling so much, that really sets me apart from other people who maybe stayed in New York and just did the same thing as other people, and being able to show that I wasn't just like going to Cape Town to learn to surf and chill on the beach, but I was actually working and doing all these other things. I think that has been really important. I also think it conveys your taste level in a way that other things can't necessarily. And even if you have like super weird taste, or even something that like other people would call somewhat questionable taste, the fact that it's like consistent and gets a point across in your social feed, I think is really important. Like I imagine a lot of people would say Carlene's surf, if you look at like the things she likes as individual things, it's questionable. Right. But the whole package, when you see it, you see the story, it's incredibly compelling. And I think that Instagram specifically, Tumblr also conveys that, and then Instagram and Snapchat conveys your personality, and I think Instagram stories and Snapchat, and right. The type of person you would be like to be around every day, which I also think is very, very important in terms of getting jobs. And then if you're a writer, I do still really think that Twitter's important.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think that if you have we talked about it on this show before, but it's like, it's tough because it's tough to grow a following on Snapchat, I feel like.
Yeah, but I think that they're way, way, way more engaged in Instagram stories.
Yes.
Because also, like, I follow 15 people on Snapchat, for more than that, but
yeah,
2,000 people on Instagram. I don't see anyone's.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
But then, like, I think a lot of people, you get so many more views on Insta stories.
I think it depends on mine are about the same.
Yeah, I think, if you got on there early.
I was like a Snapchat, like everyone who I saw for a long time was like, you're Snapchat, like you are on Snapchat, you really know Snapchat, you are Snapchat. And so I think that I had like, obviously more followers on Instagram, but as far as like Snapchat goes, like I was pretty successful with it early on.
Did you get the specs?
No. They never recognized me as being successful. I mean, like my friends and people. Yeah, but the other thing was like I was traveling so much, and when you're traveling, it's really easy to snap everything.
I mean, it's really easy to do any kind of content. I feel like, I struggle because I used to be a photographer, and I was, you're doing interesting things all the time. You're traveling, and then when you go and you sit in an office for 10 hours a day,
it's hard to make it interesting. Yeah. But the other thing is, even with travel, I think like on straight up Instagram, it can come off as really like alienating and a little like
travel snob.
A little bit, or a little like too curated, Insta freak. So I think the Snapchat element of it was like, let me show you every single part of what I'm doing, not just like the me standing in the Louvre or whatever, you know, like.
I mean, I think that's like, I know like can be the complaint against like Jamie being like, oh, her life just seems so.
But the thing is that Jamie has built her whole thing on that.
Right. That's
whereas like someone like me who built her whole thing on like being kind of like weirdo dirty dog.
Right.
I can't do it.
Right. Yeah. Is it because he's just like, I mean, you don't want to be one of those people that are just like, you know, LA to Chicago to Japan to this, you know, like travel.
Yeah, unless that's like your thing from the beginning.
Right.
I think, I don't know, I was just never that person.
Are influencers, and they have like this thing they do.
Right.
And I think a lot of them are thinking like, oh, I want to get into travel. I want to get into, you know, interiors and home. I want to get into all these things, and like people just want to see my outfit posts.
Well, but I also think like I don't know, I think if you go at all of those things from a really authentic place, if you're genuinely into it, then you'll bring the same passion that you have with your outfit post, for example, into these other avenues. And maybe it doesn't work the first 3 times you do it, but by the 4th time it won't be surprising anymore and people will start to get on board. Mm-hmm. I think that there's like an amount of persistence that needs to happen when you're trying to break into new fields, and maybe it doesn't get 1,000 likes the first time, but once people sort of get more used to it and start to expect it and you kind of perfect the way that you present it, then, you know, hopefully it will perform. But I think that if something doesn't do well the first time or even the second time or the third time, doesn't mean you should stop trying it. It means maybe like rethink how you're doing it or give it a little bit more time.
And there's probably usually a point where you say like, okay, tried it, this doesn't work. I mean, even at 4Card, like we've done things like Drink with James that have worked, and we've done things that I thought were going to be really great and work and just totally didn't. And we did them 5 or 6 times and just nobody seemed to care.
Right.
Like at some point you just kind of like let it slide. And for us, it doesn't matter because there's not a huge amount of eyeballs on it. Mm-hmm. But for, you know, an influencer with 500,000 followers or with Coveteur.
But like if you have 500,000 followers, what's really going to happen if you post something that doesn't do as well? Like you're not going to get, half of your audience isn't going to leave.
Right.
I think that the thing with the internet is like, it's just a space for weird stuff. Like there's no harm in trying things for the most part, unless you're spending thousands of dollars on something. Like if you're interested in it, why not just do it?
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe it doesn't work, but I don't know. I do think that there's really something lovely about people who like it doesn't, even if you have 500,000, 2 million followers, like this is just the thing I'm really interested in doing, and I'm gonna like have my weird sea hair blog, for example. You know, it's like.
Yeah. I've always actually kind of like been into like Miley Cyrus's social because she's
a total weirdo.
Such a weirdo.
But also, like, if you start from the beginning being a little bit of a weirdo, then it's easier, I think, to break into other verticals. Mm-hmm. If you come into it initially with like a really, really specific thing that you do, it goes back to the Eva story, you're only good for that specific thing. Like people will call you for that one thing, but you won't get calls for the 25 other things that you're interested in. And maybe for a while you feel a little bit lost at sea and like you're just doing all these things and nothing's really sticking. But if you are good at what you do, ultimately it will work, I think.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. You know, everything's based on relationships, right? So like there is a lot of.
Yeah, it's really important to be really nice. It's really important to be really nice and like respectful and patient. And it can be really hard to remember. But like more than anything else other than your work ethic and like how dedicated you are to your job, that is the most important thing, is building relationships. And I think beyond being really kind, it's also being a little bit bold and being the person to talk to someone at a party who no one else is talking to, and being able to introduce yourself to someone who you're otherwise intimidated by. I have a harder time with that. I get really shy, but it's, like it or not, doing this in 2016, that's part of the gig. You have to like put yourself out there a lot.
Did you think when you told HR like I want to write for Teen Vogue?
Well, I didn't say it was like I want to write for Vogue or Teen Vogue, and if not, then like forget it.
You had your other thing you were doing. Potentially.
Right. I was like, this is what I would really like to do.
Having your contingency plan give you some strength to be like I'm gonna like ask, because you were saying before that like you felt like you didn't have the confidence to ask for exactly what you wanted.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely did. But I also think that most people aren't as shy as I was. Like I was like really, really intimidated by it. Like super, super intimidated by it. Probably more than most people are now. Also because at that age, I didn't see that all these people who I saw like in the Condé Nast cafeteria and just thought that they had these beautiful, glamorous lives. I didn't realize that they had like 4 kids at home and these like, crazy, hectic lives and all these other things that they were doing. I just thought that they were these like angels.
Right.
So I think now having this background information on all these people, it's kind of a little bit more humanizing. So I think that there's less reason to be intimidated by it. And yeah, I think at one point when I was at Teen Vogue, I was interviewing someone and he was a stylist who works with like a lot of major people. And I asked him, how do you deal with that? I think it was just kind of conversationally. I was like, I'm really shy. How do you not be shy? Mm-hmm. He was like, you just have to remember that everyone at one point, like Oscar de la Renta, everybody at one point was the kid who needed someone to give them a chance. Mm-hmm. And like no matter how successful someone has been, at one point in their lives, they were on that end of it, of needing someone to help them out. And it's a little bit like imagining everyone in their underwear, but it helps to think like, nobody was born into this. Most people had to work really, really hard. And I think most people would be surprised at how willing other people in the fashion industry are to help them. And in my experience, it's because everyone remembers that moment where they were like, I just really need someone to give me a job.
Yeah, and I think I think you're absolutely right. I think what's maybe not discussed enough is how important it is to see that that's an opportunity and do an incredible job.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you don't get 3 or 4 chances at it.
Yeah, I really think that goes back to the whole idea I got from Eva, where it's just like, you're not compelling now if you just do one thing, unless you are a legend in the industry. Like all the people who are coming up now, the whole attitude is more with less and faster. So really just like giving everything you have, which sounds depressing, but
no, but I think it's super important.
But I also think that that's what you're up against. Yeah. Like when I was at Teen Vogue, or even at Glamour, I was thinking like, and at Lucky too, everywhere I've ever worked, there are literally thousands of girls who would do anything it took to take my job. Right. So just do it. It's hard. I mean, it sounds really nice to say, and in real life it can be very hard to keep that up and to, like not complain and not talk shit and not do the whole thing. And everyone, it's like, don't beat yourself up for it. Like that's part of it. Like everyone's human, but at the end of the day, you have to realize like I said, it's fun. Right. It's not just for fun, obviously, but like it's fun and you should be happy, and the most you can do is the most you can do. You can't do anything more than your most.
So, speaking about the Coveteur, like obviously you have like a very dedicated and committed fan base. Like, what do you think what is it about Coveteur that has people coming back over and over?
I think it's the intimacy of our access. I think a lot of other outlets probably have, they have access to the same people we do, but the fact that we go into their home, get these stories out of them, hear the thing that you might not have otherwise heard, or hear about how like they bought that pair of amazing Chanel shoes at a crazy sale with their mom. I think that part of it is really interesting and really humanizing. I also think that the photography is really beautiful. Just the whole look and feel of the site is really lovely and nice. And I think in a really crowded market space, we offer kind of a quiet moment. We are not clickbaity. We are not trashing anyone. It's just super positive, I think thoughtful website also. The stories that we do, you know, a lot of it is pretty major and like within the industry side of it. Like we've interviewed John Dempsey and we're doing some really, you know, I mentioned Trey Laird, like we're featuring people who are really, really important in the industry and who you might not otherwise know of. So for someone who's like really interested in fashion or beauty or this world, it's a great resource. Right. And I mean, you're getting career advice from the top people of the top brands in this zone. So if this is really like what you want to do, we're kind of the only place I see who really gives those people a lot of attention and time and features them. They may not be, you know, those stories might not be the clickiest, but I think as far as like beautiful, rich, nurturing, interesting, well thought out content goes, we're doing a really great job.
Yeah, I think as a reader myself, what's interesting is you're you know, there's places you can go for access, right? But you learn things. I've been in the fashion industry not nearly as long as you, but a decent amount of time, and I can read the Coveteur and I can learn stuff about the industry I'm in.
Yeah,
I can learn about the players, and I can get a glimpse into the lives of people who I already do know. But I think that is really important to go beyond things that are just, well, everybody knows this. I mean, because you guys could get anyone at this point, really, you know, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So
I think we try to be selective about what are the stories we really want to be telling, and like what are the areas of this industry that we want to highlight, and people who are amazing, and like people who we admire, and like, you know, the sorts of people who you go in to interview them and you're just like freaking out a little bit, and it's not someone who you see on the cover of a tabloid. You know, it's just like really, really smart, amazing people who have incredible careers, and I think that aspect of it is really, really important, beyond obviously the best style and beauty content ever in closets. That I think that like the thoughtfulness of it is really important and valuable. But I think that's part of what made the role interesting to me in the first place. It was, how do we grow this beyond what it already is without resorting to those traditional ways of getting eyeballs? Right. And staying true to the things that we do and producing content that, like when my stories come out, I want to send them to my parents or like put them on my own Facebook wall or whatever. Trying to have a sense of like, not integrity about it, but just like things that, stories that I would want to read at the end of the night.
I think it's integrity.
Yeah, but like when I say integrity, it makes me sound like it's like we're not the Wall Street Journal over here. Like it's not.
No, but I've come to expect something from you.
Yeah, and when I say we're not the Wall Street Journal, all I mean is it's not like hardcore reporting.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But like I've come to expect something from Coveteur, and you deliver.
Yeah.
You know, and it's never a surprise in a bad way of like, oh, that's weird. Why are they like interviewing that person? Yeah,
it's nice to hear. I think we just try to like stick to the types of people who we'd want to read about it. Like at the end of the day, you know, when we're in our pitch meetings and everything, the question is like, would you click on that story? Would you share it with your friends? Like, is this something that you would actually want to read? And when we're editing each other's work, like, you know, is this interesting to you as you're editing it? Like, is it hard to get through? And I think keeping that in mind always as you're doing it, rather than just like churning out copy for the sake of getting clicks, is important. But at the same time, you know, we are really trying to grow and trying to figure out a way that we can get all those extra eyeballs, because it's a challenge. You know, we're producing all of this really beautiful, really thoughtful content, and everything looks amazing, and it's like rich interviews and people who are really important to know if you're trying to break into this world. And we want obviously the most eyeballs we can get on it. So how do we kind of balance that side where you're bringing new people in and also staying true to the original thing? And that's the struggle. I think that's like probably the challenge that everyone's facing. And if someone figures out the magic formula, I hope they'll let me know.
Another question, outside of your friends and family, is there anyone that you're following right now that you think is just doing an awesome job that you're loving? on Instagram or Snapchat?
I think Christy Dash is great. She was my intern years ago at Teen Vogue, and then she was Eva's assistant, and then she went to Allure, and now she's with Obsessi. I think she is amazing. There's this girl in California, I don't know her real name. Her Instagram name is Napkin Apocalypse. And she has these...
I'm already into it.
She has these dogs and like pigeons, and she's obsessed with animals, and her husband's a pro surfer, and she has a baby, and she's like always making these like interesting little universes for her dogs to sit in, and they sit very patiently in these costumes, and it's not like an Ann Getty's kind of like cheesy baby and a dog. It's like the dog is dressed in like a jean jacket, like a band. It's just like the cutest, it's the best thing ever. And she's really interested in animals. Like every Wednesday she posts an interesting animal with an interesting animal fact, which I love. I love animals.
Right. Especially slugs, sea slugs.
Sea hares.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by, and you're going back to Texas tomorrow?
Yeah.
So what's your barbecue order?
Brisket.
Brisket. I mean, you're Texas.
Brisket and elegant sausage, yeah, with
What's the best brisket you've ever had?
To be totally honest,
Here we go.
brisket to me is kind of like pizza. It's
Okay.
always good unless it's really bad.
Okay. Tim agrees. Tim agrees. And next time we'll drink Lone Star and eat some brisket.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.